Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Sparks Joy. So in this episode we're going to be looking at the number 7. Seems a bit of a strange thing to talk about, I know, but I've always had an obsession with things like number patterns or just patterns in nature, patterns in mathematics, patterns in other systems of thinking about the world, that sort of thing. So I thought it'd be interesting to do an episode about a specific number. We're going to look at the number 7. We're going to use both cards from a tarot deck and cards from so the conventional tarot versus cards from more like a hermetic deck. Also, I'm full disclosure, just using this book to help me remind myself of various interpretations. So what I've done here is I've just pulled out all the cards, so both the major and the minor arcana, which specifically reference the number 7, and we'll just go through and I suppose meditate on, in this particular paradigm, what is the significance of the number 7, and then maybe that'll lead you to looking for patterns in other systems perhaps. And so let's see where it takes us. So we'll start off over here, so we'll move from left to right. I've more got these at the top just as a contrast really. I'll probably be talking more about the images in here because they're a little bit easier to discern. But I just thought it was an interesting compare and contrast. We might spot some things as we're going through. So we start off with the Chariot. So stands for the experience of one's personality, which is formed through both conscious effort, the charioteer, and the drives of the unconscious. Karma, the story of one's life. The Sphinxes, I believe, represent the mysteries of life. So we've got this sort of drive, I suppose, going on, a path, a goal, but some sort of cultivation that's going on here, which we'll see in a moment has a significance for what these other cards may or may not represent. And I know when you look at these through certain lenses, you notice different things. Like this very much has always reminded me of conflict, but as I've read various interpretations, it's given me a little bit of a better understanding about the sort of symbols, the different parts here, and that might happen when we go in other sections. Also, it's interesting along here when we look at the ones from the Hermetic Tarot deck. It's all like Lord of the Triumph of Light, Lord of Valor, Lord of Illusionary Success, Lord of Unstable Effort, Lord of Success Unfulfilled. So these here, a lot of these have slightly more negative connotations, whereas these ones here seem to have slightly more positive connotations. But again, we'll just see as we go along. The other thing about the Chariot which is interesting is one aspect of it is this thing of maybe not being able to get off the Chariot, but you can send it in a different direction if you want. So it's handy to think about it, in that respect. Is there anything specifically? I mean, if we're looking at sort of individual things, so you've got the Sphinxes down the front, life's mysteries. We have this section here, which I believe represents karma. This sort of chariot of stone. We've got the laurels, the charioteer with the laurels, so representing, I believe, our subjectivity. The crown and the canopy of stars here, infinity of space, beauty of the cosmos. There's a certain you know, polarity here as well. I don't know how easy that is to see. There we've got these sort of sides here, on stuff on either side. There's like an armor element as well. We have this, the magic wand and the staff, sort of sign of preparedness and being well equipped. And other things like this sort of winged sun god symbol. And other things you might notice here as well. There's a river in here as well, if you're observant. So, you know, plenty going on there. But definitely tied to, you know, experience. In terms of personality, that's formed over conscious effort and also the drive of one life. So the charioteer and the chariot going on. So let's see how maybe these other ones fit in, do or don't fit in. So we'll start off with the 7 of staves. Okay. So yeah, first time I saw this, I would think of, like, you know, dispute, fighting. Another way of thinking about it, and I didn't really think about it until I started reading, I think probably the book, you know, this ultimate guide, the tarot, is what if these here actually belonged to the figure? How would that change your interpretation of the card? Clearly there's an element of, you know, achieving a new, you know, the main character here is on a higher level. And also things like, you know, is this a game? Is it a serious dispute? Do these wands, are they just resting on the rock there? You know, maybe these all belong to this person and they're just testing them out. But clearly, you know, it indicates that they're in a good position, secure stand, that sort of thing. You could say that, you know, you're working your way up. These might represent the bottom rungs of a ladder as well, so those sort of things. Just trying to think of anything else I would want to point out. I mean, again, you've got things like, you know, the sky here, which is on this card. I think it's slightly greener, but the sort of blue sky, and the different colours in these cards obviously represent certain things. But there is a lot of significance in this idea of the hillock here with the ones lined up. So one way to look at it in a positive light is this, again, an idea of which links back to this sort of path of progress. So over time you sort of learn more and how to cope with bigger tasks and different things that might come your way. And the fact, you know, as you grow, that development is in stages. So let's move on to the cups. So 7 of Cups, and as we do this, you'll sort of start to see a pattern here to do with possibilities, to do with you know, ongoing development. So again, single protagonist, and there's stuff laid out here. So we've got a number of cups laid out, almost like fantastic possibilities opening out in front of you. You know, choosing, you know, choose what you will. Maybe you've got to make a choice between these. Maybe that all of them are for you. You know, you might live in this sort of world of wonders. The other interesting thing is how this particular figure is in the shadows almost. So maybe it's sort of talking a lot about, you know, coming out of the shadows of the past, that sort of stuff. But then the individual images are interesting as well. You've got this sort of curly head individual. There's a castle in here. There's treasure and jewellery, laurels, a dragon, a snake, and this is supposed to be, I think, a shrouded figure, like something enigmatic. So, you know, these all have, you know, different interpretations in terms of, you know, what's opening up in front of you. Maybe some of these might be bad choices. So, you know, it might be a case of like separating the wheat from the chaff. That's another way of thinking about it. You know, what wishes are you serving, and what wishes serve your happiness? Like I said, some of these might be bad choices. Might be bad choices. And I'm trying to see up here with the card above it, which is much more abstract. Well, we've got almost like things feeding into different cups from this center. It's like there's a hand there, you can see, and then all these flower heads going out to the different cups. So much more sort of abstract. And then if we move on now to the, what was it, Seven of Swords. Okay, so we've got a figure looking backwards, and they're sort of clutching on to, what, 5 of the 7 swords. There's 2 in the ground here. Got some interesting stuff in the background. So the figure looks like they're taking 5 swords. Are they leaving 2? Or is that all they can carry? Are they leaving stuff behind, perhaps? So, you know, is this another sort of choice thing going on here? Yeah, this is what I'm leaving behind. And another thing I see mentioned is this idea, I think it's from Kierkegaard, you know, one has to live life forwards, but one can only understand it backwards. So this sort of forwards, backwards relationship. Yeah. So, you know, it seems to me there is is there a nomadic lifestyle here, an unrest? Definitely there's something to do with like going with what you can grasp, because it is this saying that, you know, you wouldn't be able to carry these extra 2 swords, that's why you're leaving them behind. There's a limit on what you can carry. So it's quite a lot to be determined from the posture, I think, you know, looking back, just trying to carry this stuff. Is there some significance in the fact that there's 3 on one shoulder, maybe 2 on the other? There's also a group of people in the background. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. And then what we'll do is we'll move on to Pentacles, the last one. So 7. Here we go. So we've got some separation going on here. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over this side, 1 over here. with this, I've always thought of it when I first saw it, before I started even reading any interpretations of these, is this idea of appraising your results to date. You know, are you satisfied with what you've got? How has it worked? So you can see how these in some way are interconnected, but they all maybe go in slightly different directions, or they might be, maybe you could put these in a certain order. You know, of, okay, we've got, does these sort of question of, so maybe, you know, like a choice thing, and then that's part of a progress, and then you have the appraisal, and then you decide to, you know, what you're going to leave behind, that sort of thing. And this is, you know, over the top, perhaps. Anyway, it's another way of thinking about that, as forming almost like a timeline. And that's always interesting when you're looking at patterns, is it just a simultaneous pattern where you're looking for similarities between things, or is it like a timeline pattern where they form like a natural progression? So other meanings for this, we're looking at the, drawing our attention back on here again. So all things, tasks, apart from their purely factual aspects, there's going to be like personal signification as well. You know, things like, because we're doing, and this is about appraisal, if we think of it through that lens for a moment, is there something that's bugging you? Is there something missing? Do you need to see things differently? Is this a sort of sorting that's going on here? You know, are you looking at what's in this bush and saying, oh yeah, I need to keep this, this and this? So in some ways similarity to this. Maybe what do you want to replant? If this is, you know, growth here, and this is the potential for future growth, are you going for your sort of second bush of pentacles? So again, it's this thing of taking stock, you know, searching for current questions, searching for signs and traces. Are there any stumbling blocks? You know, what would you like to cultivate from an existing thing? This is, you know, the hoe here is representing a tool we might be using. When I first saw it, it was almost just like someone leaning on their staff, but there is significance in the type of tool it is. So this idea of the right tool for a particular job as well. There is a certain weariness to the, you think about someone leaning on their tool in times of weariness as well, in times of tiredness. There may be that aspect that you might want to sort of think about. But there's almost like also a pondering type look, a musing type look there as well. Now, I don't know how clear it is on this. On some cards, not so clear on this. I believe there's often a different colour in the boots as well. So again, this assessing of a situation. So you might find when you're looking at certain images, the same things are represented in different parts of the image. You know, there might be a mixture in colours. In here as well, you don't see it so much, but you might see maybe a mixture in the colours of the clothing, that sort of stuff going on. So I definitely see strongly in here elements of, waiting, musing, taking a break, thinking over things, what is the meaning. So it is interesting how these all come together in various concepts, I suppose, of progress, of taking stock, of, looking at what is out there and maybe what you have to take with you and what you have to leave behind as well. So yeah, very interesting exercises to do. Looking at patterns across numbers. I may do this with other numbers in here, like looking at difference or similarities between numbers in any representational system. I was going to talk a little bit about certain mathematical significances of the number 7 in terms of like interesting numbers, but I decided to sort of stick with this. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.